Ready?
My guest today, Sang Viens.
Yes.
Perfect. I appreciate you coming on with me. This is exciting stuff. You reached out pretty much right away when I got this thing going. So, what I'm gonna do is just kind of go through a brief introduction,
Mhm.
which I know very little about you. So I'm gonna kind of let you lead the way on that.
Oh, God.
Obviously, I know we went to high school together.
Yeah.
You graduated '09, I graduated '07. Um, we worked at Shrine for a little bit
Hold
together.
on a second. '09. I graduated '04.
We did not go to high school together. Okay, I'm not gonna edit that out though because I sound foolish.
No,
So,
you're fine.
I see very little reasons. Anyway, '04, I was a freshman there, so we still went to high school
We
together.
did.
Okay,
Yes.
and then we worked, like I said, worked together at Shrine.
Hmm.
The little background that I know of you is you worked at Shore Landing since I remember reaching
Yes.
out back in 2014 when my wife and I, well, now wife, girlfriend, then we were looking for apartments to stay,
Yeah.
and worked at Shrine for a little bit. You are one of the OG girls of Shrine, right?
I
Yeah,
am.
awesome,
I
awesome.
am.
So if you can, saying just kind of bring me to where we are today. So we have Lil Brow Wow, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I think also I read and I love your humor is that you've had to introduce yourself as sang like I sang a song.
All right.
So yeah, bring me up to speed. What you've done, your background. How you landed where you are to now, and we'll take it from there.
God, where do I even start? I mean, I guess I can go back to high school and I can say that, I was always into art. Um, as junior, senior year, there's always so much pressure to like, oh, where are you going for college? What are you gonna do? And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I hadn't really like honed in on anything in particular that I knew would be, a career. So I kind of fell into like, oh, I guess I'll just pursue art. And, a lot of people were like, well, what are you gonna do in it? Because it's super competitive. So I ended up going to Pear College of Art in Hamden
Mm,
for interior design. And I did that for a few years, but the reason why that didn't pan out was because I didn't want to move to a big city. I wasn't ready to like be on my own like that. So I kind of after college, after graduating, I kind of fell into like smaller jobs around the area. So that's where I ended up being, a shrine girl. And then I also did a full-time job at a leasing apartment place.
awesome.
And so I remember, your mom.
Yeah, she's still there.
Oh, she's still there?
She's still there.
Oh,
She's
nice.
she's like 11 or 12 years there now.
Oh,
She
wow.
we moved there in 2013, right after I graduated college, or right when I was about to graduate college.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And quickly before we jump into the PMU, which is abbreviated for personal or professional makeup artist, correct? Or
Permanent makeup.
permanent. Oh, see, listen, you're going to educate me, and this is the exciting part about it. So the purpose of my show, I want to dive into other people's work,
Yeah.
and I shared with you when I walked in today is I never heard of the saying permanent makeup. Um, Wild to considering it's been like around for a significant amount of
Yeah.
time. But it seems like it's trending more
Hmm.
over the last 5-6 years, probably.
Yes.
If my research, is correct there. But just a quick, I'm gonna give you my high level, and then I'll let you kind of dive into it a little bit.
Hmm.
So permanent makeup is a cosmetic technique that utilizes tiny needles to deposit pigment into the upper dermis layer of the skin.
Yes.
Awesome. What drew you to this field specifically, Say?
So it's kind of funny because I was doing the whole shrine thing and the leasing thing for like a long time. And I was working a lot of hours during the week and I just kind of grew tired. I missed out on a lot of like family events, friends, get togethers, things like that. And I was just like, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And short answer is no.
Yeah.
So one of my friends actually came into work and she had gotten her brows done. And I was like, wow, your brows look good. And she's like, oh yeah, I had them microbladed. I was like, what is that? Because at that point I'd heard of tattooing, but it was the traditional like Sharpie looking
Yeah.
tattoo, and my mom unfortunately had that. So I was like not a fan of it. But when she came in, it looked super natural. So I asked her more questions on it, and then I did some research, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I could do this. Like, why not? So I ended up taking a course in it. I only did the microblading course first.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything else that was involved in it. I was like, all right, the only thing I do know is that when I do this, I have to make a plan. I'm not going to just take this course and be like, oh, no, I'm just going to go with the flow.
Right.
So I said to myself, if I do this, I have to, when I did the research, it was 2,000 hours worth of apprenticeship that you have to complete in order to obtain your license in the state of Connecticut.
That's a lot of hours.
It is.
What's that equate to years, like years-wise? Or
about a year and a half.
Okay.
So, I mean, in other states, it's not as regulated. Like,
Sure.
for example, if you go to New York, you get certified and you can just go ahead and start performing work on people.
You could get a certification on a corner in New York, probably somewhere, right?
Yeah, basically.
Quick, yeah.
So as much as it sucked to do the 2,000 hours, it also really helped me hone in on the technique a little bit better. And obviously, you want people to feel safe when you're doing that kind of thing on them. So yeah, I took the course. It was April of 2019. And then I decided to do an apprenticeship with the school that I went to, which was Micropigmentation Academy. And that's out of Wethersfield.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it seems like what you said earlier about your, you liked art. This kind of goes hand in hand with that. So with the artistic aspect, is there also another aspect of like, the desire to help people maybe feel good about themselves? That kind of is your why to what you do here.
Yeah. So it's funny because I went into this thinking like, all right, this is going to be something along the lines of art, and I get to control my schedule, and I know I can make good money doing this. But I didn't realize how much I was going to fall in love with it, because it's not just about giving people the, freedom to like get up and go in the morning, because they don't have to spend like 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes fixing their eyebrows before they start their day. But it's also working with people who have, alopecia, people who are cancer patients that lost their hair.
Wow.
Even people who have low self-esteem, who got out of an abusive relationship and just needs a little bit of something to add to their life that makes them feel good about themselves, self-confidence.
Right. So let's walk through some common procedures. So again, my high level research, all the research that you said 2,000 hours. It was about 2,000 seconds that I've researched this. So, there's microblading, there's the powder brows, eyeliner permanent eyeliner, lip blushing. And on my way here, I listened to a PMU podcast because I really wanted to learn more. I was like, I got to be on my stuff. And they were talking about permanent blush, to the face. And one of the girls was saying like, hey, I'm not a big fan of that. But anyway, I digress there. If you can, just walk me through each process, kind of 2-3 minute detail of like the microblading or the procedures. Like what's the most common out of all of them?
So it's really dependent on the area, honestly. So in this area, I would say just in Connecticut in general, I think a lot of people want that natural look, which is what most people think is microblading, which is individual hair strokes that are tattooed on. But and I educate everybody on this when they try to book microblading, that it's not for everybody.
Sure.
And the reason why I say that is because if you don't have a lot of hair or you don't have hair on your brows at all, microblading isn't going to be enough. And so that's when I try to steer them in the direction of either the powder brow, but if they really want the hair strokes, then I would do what I call a fusion brow, or it's better known as a combo brow.
Yeah. What kind of feedback do you get back when you tell someone like, hey, this is not going to be for you? Like, is that something that people are like, well, I want it anyway?
Yeah, I've had a couple people like that. Yeah. And you know what? I'm never here to push anybody towards something that they're not ready for. It's ultimately your decision, because you're going to be the one staring at your brows every day, not me. Right. But I can give you my best input on what you should have.
It seems like there's a big factor in someone's skin type.
Yes.
So can you kind of educate me a little bit about like why that's such a big deal when it comes to someone's skin type and the microblading?
Yes. So if you have more of the oily skin, microblading is not for you. Oh. And the reason is because, over time, at first it'll look great, but over time, that oil is going to dilute the pigment underneath, so it's going to cause pigment migration.
Mhm.
So when you see nice crisp strokes in the beginning, over time it'll start to blur out, and then as time goes on, it might end up being more solid
Mm.
of a brow. So instead of the microbladed look, it's going to look like a shaded brow.
How long does it last? Or how long can it last?
So permanent makeup for your brows can last anywhere from 1 to a few years, depending on how well you take care of it
Mm.
and what your lifestyle is. So even though when I say oily skin can also migrate the pigment, but it can also fade the pigment faster too. So it can go one of either way. So when they have oily skin, I usually recommend more shading
Mhm.
than hair strokes.
My wife was telling me today, she's like, thin eyebrows, or yesterday, thin eyebrows are back. Like that's something and I'm like, really? Like,
Supposedly.
supposedly.
I hope not, because that puts me out of business.
Because your one of your taglines, your shirt said is you fix 90s brows. And I thought
Yes.
that was the 90s era. I mean, it seems like they trend, right? They kind of
Mhm.
come and go. You have your big, bold, bushy, eyebrows. You have the thin eyebrows, then you have the overarching eyebrows. I did my research a little bit, just a little bit. w- you know, with the trends and it seems like social media is heavily influencing folks in the microblading and whatnot.
Yeah.
Is there a specific style, or is it just kind of like you make a recommendation of one or two? What is there a trend that kind of is driving this a little bit, or
I mean, more of a shape, I
sure,
would say.
sure,
So I have clients that want super thick brows and then ones that want super thin brows,
got
and
it,
that's fine.
sure,
Um, but they just want some more symmetry, a better shape than what they currently have. And for whatever reason, when people overplucked their brows, they were so scared of the whole unibrow thing that they plucked them far back. So we want to bring it in a little bit.
yeah,
And, sometimes they want their arches more defined, things like that.
yeah. What's the process like? So I come in as a male.
Mhm.
I, I want microblading done. I want my eyebrows to be. What's that look like? I'm kind of jumping to my next segment, which we'll go back there because I have some questions on that. So there's some benefits into getting your eyebrows, and like you said, there's the confidence builder.
Mhm.
They look great.
Mhm.
I think eyebrows are like I started getting my eyebrows done when I was like 12. I used because when I get my hair cut, which
Yeah.
I need, but I started getting my eyebrows done because if not, the thing grows and starts connecting.
Yeah.
And so there's a confidence boosting. What do you think? What would you say, in your experience with your clients, has been like some of the biggest, like, kind of like comforting moments knowing that you helped a client based off of the confidence, the cosmetic benefits? Do you have a moment with specific clients that are thankful for what you do and
Oh, yeah.
and just kind of like it's a good life experience for them to kind of go through this and now live in this next 3, 4, 5 years, however long it lasts,
Yeah.
with that shape.
Yeah. Actually, funny that you say that. I just had a client text me yesterday
Oh,
thanking me for the work that I
yeah.
did. She was like super happy. She's like, I take a look at the mirror and I like get so excited. I'm so in love with them. Like, oh, that brings me joy.
Yeah. What's the healing process like?
It's not as bad as most people think. So everybody that has gone to other artists, like everybody has their own technique
Sure.
and aftercare and whatnot. My aftercare is pretty simple. Just using a little bit of antiseptic spray on a Q-tip, gently go over the brows in the direction of the hair, and using a tiny dab of A&D ointment. So those two items go hand in hand together for the next 3 days, every 3 to 4 hours.
Mhm.
Obviously, with any tattoo, you don't want to prematurely pick at the scabs. I prefer my clients to keep their brows as dry as they can. So that means no excessive sweating from like working out, no swimming pools. In the shower, you want to wash your hair from behind instead of like directly on the face, using a makeup wipe or a towel to clean their face until those scabs are off.
Nice.
But the scabs typically look like little hairs falling off. So it doesn't look super noticeable. You're not getting like chunks of scabs coming off.
What's the feedback that you get about that? Like if someone comes in, gets it, and then I'm sure you set the right expectations, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. But do you ever get folks that are like, oh my God, this is not what I thought?
I mean, sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I have aftercare cards, it explains all the directions, the do's and don'ts, and then on the back of the card, there's like a little pictogram of people certain time periods of what they should be expecting. So there's like the first day, like they look great. The second to like fifth day, they look super dark because the scabs are starting to form, then so on and so forth. So they're like, refer back to that card religiously. Otherwise, I tell them, like, if there's any other questions, like, you have my contact info, just reach out.
So can you walk us through typical from I reach out to you, we book an appointment, what the consultation process is like all the way to end, put to I feel great that my eyebrows are as beautiful as they are. Do you mind just doing a quick, overview of what that looks like?
Yeah, so people will reach out to me and they'll ask, like, what's your availability? I'll let them know, like, um, what it is, but if they want to take a look at the schedule to kind of like match up with their schedule instead of going back and forth, there is a link on my Instagram page and on my Facebook page that they can view my schedule at their leisure. Once they pick that out, waivers will be sent directly to them that they need to fill out in order to start the process. And if and I look over all those waivers prior to our appointment, so if there's any questions, concerns, like,
Good.
we can address that at first. And then the day of the appointment, I do a mini consult. Obviously, if they want to see me prior or talk to me prior, that's fine. We can do in-person consultation or virtual, whatever is easiest for them. But either way, whether we do the consult before the appointment or not, I still do a mini consult anyway, because between that time and when we meet, things could change. They have other questions.
Is there a fee for the consult?
So in person, there is a $25 fee. If they want mapping as well, it's a $50 fee, and that'll go towards your initial appointment. But if it's virtual or through messaging, then it's free.
So I heard the phrase mapping. Can you walk me through what mapping is? Because I'd like to know exactly what that means, because I didn't have enough time.
No, it's okay. So mapping is just basically me drawing your brow shape for you.
Okay.
And I base that off of whatever your preferences are. So if you're like, I want thick brows or I want a higher arch, I will take that into consideration, and then I'll base it off of your bone structure. So no shape is going to ever be the same as the last person or the person after you. So obviously everybody has different facial features, and what you see on one person may not look as great on you.
Right.
So that's why I prefer to base it off bone structure as
How
well.
long is a consult usually? I'm sorry if I missed that part.
Probably like 10-15 minutes.
Okay, so it's not a ton. Is there like a trial and error where they're like, I don't like that shape and I want to do a different shape? Or
Yeah, no, I always tell my clients, like, if you're uncomfortable with something or you don't like something, don't be afraid to tell me.
Yeah.
You're not going to hurt my feelings, because like I said before, at the end of the day, these are what you're going to be looking at every single day, not me.
Right. I saw you had mentioned some do's and don'ts prior to them coming in for their appointment.
Yes.
Mind just kind of the do's and don'ts quickly and just.
Yeah, so when they book their appointment, there's one of the waivers that states pre-cure information. So we want to avoid anything that's going to be a blood thinner. So for example, caffeine, aspirin, those items. Oh, alcohol. You want to avoid those at least 24
Count
to 40.
me out. Can't go to appointment today.
I know it's kind of hard, but
Yeah, I had coffee on the way here. So.
Well, I know, because I have had some people that are like, I can't live without my coffee. Like, I'm so jittery without it. I'm like, well, if you want this to be the best experience, then I would try to sacrifice it for just that time.
Right.
But yeah, those things at least 24 to 48 hours in advance. If you're on fish oils, that's also a blood thinner. That's got to be a week that you're off of that. Obviously, if you're on actual blood thinners like Coumadin, you want to be off that for a little bit as well, just so that your blood can regulate.
How do you manage the expectations with your clients and get them to understand that this is it's a little bit of a process, but there's an overall benefit from it? Is that something you just do up front? You have to remind folks. I know from the insurance standpoint, I try to educate folks and say, hey, listen, don't file a claim unless you have to. Your house burns down, file a claim. Your basement floods because your pipes burst, file a claim. But if there's, a couple $100 worth of damage to your home, do not file a claim. And that's something that I mentioned up front, because insurance companies aren't your friend. I'll be the first one to say it. They don't want you to use them because that's how they make money. Yeah. So I'm a big believer when it comes to setting the right expectations to folks. I think a lot of what you said is kind of along those lines. But is there one thing that you make sure you do not miss in this process?
If there's anything that I've learned with customer service, you have to be very transparent with
Mhm.
them in a sense where you have to basically baby talk them
Yeah,
because I don't expect everybody to know the ins and
of
outs of
course,
what I do. That's not anybody's
of course.
job. So, what I think would be normal to know, that client's not going to know. So,
Right.
basically, when I see them come in, let's, for example, if they have like barely anything to work with as far as hair, I'll let them know, like, all right, look, microblading probably isn't for you, but you should probably do shading. But if they're like, I don't know, like, listen, this is just me telling you my professional input. Like, I'm not here to tell you you have to do
Mhm.
this, but this is what I think you should do. And
Sure.
then I could tell them, we'll do the microblading first. And if you think that it's not enough, because remember, when you heal, it heals about 30% lighter.
Mm.
So it's going to be even more prominent from where you have more of the 3D effect of your hair versus my strokes that are flat on your skin. So you're going
Right.
to see a difference
Right.
for sure, especially once you're healed.
Right.
Um, then you can make it that a decision at that point, like, all right, let's do the shading.
Sure.
Or if you want to wait and see how they heal, you can also add on the shading later on or not. But at least they know.
When do they? At what point do you ask for like follow? Do they come back like after the 2 weeks? Is that
No, so 6 to 8 weeks
okay?
is follow-up, and that's just basically readjusting anything that needs it.
Sure.
So, for example, if there's one area that didn't take pigment very well, I'll add more color there, or if you wanna adjust the shape, like you wanna be a little bit thicker,
Mhm.
the tail's a little bit longer, change the color,
Sure.
things like that.
Does it hurt?
I get this question a lot. So it's really dependent on your pain
Yeah.
tolerance. And I've personally had it done without any numbing, so I know exactly what it feels
What did it
like.
feel like?
Um, so the strokes, they felt like cat scratches.
Okay, that hurts.
Yes, it does hurt. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but
Especially on your face.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, you have a lot more sensitivity up
Sure.
here.
Sure.
So, and then the shading part is done with a machine
Mhm.
needle, so that isn't as bad.
Mhm.
But here's what I tell my clients. So they will ask me that same question. And I'm like, if you think that you're going to be sensitive, like I can certainly numb you. I use a topical numbing agent
Sure.
for about 15
Is
minutes.
it like lidocaine or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I can numb you and then we can get started.
Mhm.
If you can because it takes me about like 8 to maybe 10 minutes at most to
Mhm.
finish a brow. So
Okay.
if you can,
That's quick.
yeah, it's a lot faster than most people think.
I was thinking like hours.
No, no, it's not like your traditional tattoo. So
Yeah.
it takes me about 8 minutes to finish a brow. So if you can withstand a little bit of pain for that long,
Mhm.
then the pigment will retain a little bit better. So less work for me at
Sure.
touch up.
Sure.
Then people will be like, okay, I think I can do that. Because whatever route that we take, whether I numb you prior or not, I'm still going to numb you halfway in between. So there's basically two steps in the whole process. So the first step is me going over what we call a first pass. That's putting in all of the strokes and whatever shading.
Sure.
It's like a blueprint
Yeah.
in a sense. After that, I put numbing on it for like 5 minutes or
Okay.
so. And then I work on the other brow.
Yeah.
Do the same thing, come back to this brow, apply more, basically go over the strokes in the
Mhm.
shaded area with more pigment.
I know when I get like I get the lidocaine when I get my teeth have a cavity here and there.
Me too. It's okay.
but it takes a while to get numb
Yeah.
sometimes. Do you ever find that some folks don't get as numb as quick than others, that you have to go back and reapply more lidocaine, or is that just kind of
Sometimes.
okay?
Sometimes people they don't take to numbing very well.
Sure.
There are some people that don't take numbing at all.
Mhm.
Like you could apply an ungodly amount and they just
Yeah.
feel everything. And
Okay.
I feel so bad for them. But at the same time, like, what can you do?
People cry.
I don't think I've ever had it. Well, I mean,
I would tear up. I'm telling you right now, I would tear up.
I've had people like cry because it's like people will tell me it doesn't hurt like that, but
Yeah.
it just is like a nerve thing.
Yeah.
Just like when I have tissues next to them
Good,
at all
good,
times because the eyes will water and they get a sensation where they just want to sneeze.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Where do you get most of your business from?
Honestly, a lot of word of mouth right
Mm.
now. So the difference between when I was in Wethersfield, I relied on the academy name to book me clients and word of mouth
Sure.
of people I've worked on.
Sure.
But now that I'm by myself,
Mhm.
like I've been pushing myself
Yeah.
even harder to like go to work
Yeah.
events, go to networking events,
Sure.
and promoting myself, kind of being on social media presence,
Sure.
like
What kind of
more.
networking events do you go to? Are you like, so like, I'm part of several, realtor groups, chamber of commerce, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, like there's some professional folks in there that I would have never thought. Like,
Hmm.
so T-Mobile in one of them. Like, what's T-Mobile doing here?
Wow.
For this, chamber event. I get it because
Yeah.
it's chamber of commerce. But what kind of groups are you part of?
Um, I went to Rising Tide of New London.
Mhm.
And that was a scary thing because I only knew a small handful of people in there, but I
Sure.
didn't like know them.
Sure.
So I went by myself
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my.
That's always fun.
Yeah, I was like, who do I talk to?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm an extrovert, but an introvert at the same
Correct.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Same.
had an amazing time.
Good.
I met a lot of amazing people and learned a lot. So I've been to that one. There was another one that it's not like a known name. Somebody just kind of threw it together. So I've been to one of my friends who threw her. She's doing real estate. She's
Mhm.
done two of them, and I went to a couple of them.
Nice.
And then another person that's from my Niantic, Alex. She does the mix,
Yep.
so she's done events as well, and I've gone to one of hers. And I recently just did a women empowerment event
Cool.
a couple Saturdays ago.
Nice.
So there was like 30 plus businesses,
Oh, that's awesome.
and we kind of just met each other
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like marketed to
Yeah.
local people.
Awesome.
So,
Networking is I love networking. I'm also like a, extrovert, but I'm also introvert. Like,
yeah,
because I go to these events, and I said this on my last episode, is that I'm always thinking about what someone thinking about me, or
yeah,
I don't want to sound silly, but once you kind of get there and get comfortable, it makes it easy. I will say, I see you guys have the Google scan code.
yes,
When I was working in my last company,
hmm,
I used that heavily.
yeah,
For about a year.
hmm,
I would, after I would close the sale, I would say,
hmm,
hey, I would send them a quick email. Here's a link to my Google review page. Mine just give me a review based off of how your experience with me.
yeah.
And within about 11 months span, I got 150 reviews.
Wow,
And that following year, um, it would generate just organic business because
yeah,
I would pop on the insurance, and my name would pop up.
yeah.
Do you use that at all in terms of, is that working out for you, or?
Um, So I will say the only thing I've been slacking is telling people to leave reviews because it's
Got it.
always just like it's there,
Sure.
but I never think like, oh yeah, can you leave me
Yeah.
a review?
Yeah.
I'm always my mind's always keep going,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, when's your next appointment? When can we
Yeah.
book it?
Yeah.
Like, so
Do you
I
capture emails?
yeah, we do have
Yeah. Yeah.
emails, but it's like I said, it's just
It just needs to be top of mind. And
yeah,
honestly, that's all it takes. Once you do it one or two times, it's like, all right, you just come up with a process of, after you're done doing
yeah.
it, I'm going to challenge you to do it, because
Oh,
I don't
okay.
see a lot of, again, I looked up microblading in
Mhm.
the area. What's the market like around here? I don't see many of them.
There's other artists
Yeah.
around the area. I have honestly, I haven't really met any. I know of them,
Hmm.
and they seem like nice people
Sure.
from other people that know them,
Yeah.
but I haven't personally met
Oh, right.
anybody.
Gotcha. I just want to jump into the safety and hygiene, because I think that's probably pretty much important,
Yes.
right? Like, that's probably, you can't run this business without complying with certain standards.
Correct.
And I'm assuming, is it OSHA standards, or?
So it's in order to do this, you need to take a bloodborne pathogens course and then first aid and CPR. You want to make sure that you're not cross contaminating anything. I go through a lot of gloves. A lot of gloves because I'm always like, crap, I forgot to grab this. Let me change my gloves and grab that real quick. And we use things like sani cloths instead of like Clorox bleach wipes because that's not medical grade. And we
Sure.
need to make sure that we sanitize everything to a T. Otherwise, we have disposable products that I would use, such as like the blades and the needles, all disposable. I have like like clip cords and stuff like that. I mean, the only thing that would make sure everything passes. We have health department come in here
Okay.
and check.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we just recently had a check, so
Oh, good.
everything checked out.
Good. Awesome. Have you heard of any horror stories, like in forums and stuff like that, that just kind of?
Actually, you know what? I did hear one time that I don't know who it was. I just heard the story where the artist worked on a client
Mhm.
and then she took the blade out when she was done, and then she handed it to her client and said, "Bring this back for your touch up."
What?
And I was like, "Oh, that's disgusting."
Wow.
And so when I work on clients, I always show them my tools. I'm like,
Sure.
"Here, this is perfectly packaged, brand new,
Yeah.
not reused." And they're like, "I trust you." I'm like, "I know, but there are some people that have asked me, like, do you reuse your tools?" I'm like, "Absolutely not."
I couldn't imagine if my barber sent me home with the straight edge blade, like, "Hey, come back for your next haircut with this." Like, no, bro, I'm not doing that.
No.
You know, going back to your artistic expertise, and you like art. Do you draw or anything like that?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, you do draw. Awesome. Um, can you discuss the skills and the knowledge required for like successful procedures? So, I got to imagine color theory probably plays into it a lot.
Yep.
Symmetry and proportions,
Mhm.
right? You mentioned bone structure and all that stuff,
Mhm.
and shading and blending, all that stuff. So, just quickly talk about that, like, how that plays into the role of making sure that I look beautiful.
I mean, to be honest, like, I thought that I had such a leg up on this industry because of my art background, but just because you have that does not mean a single thing.
It's starting all over.
It's basically because it's how much you put into it.
Yeah.
So people who, because I've taught some people that were like, "Oh yeah, I have no art background." I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
When I had taught students before, they were like, "Oh, I have no background in this." I was like, it doesn't matter. It's how much practice you get in,
Mm,
because it's essentially more so a muscle memory
sure.
when you're actually doing it.
Right.
Um, and then everything else is just knowledge,
Hmm.
right? So yes, if you have an art background and you're applying yourself just as much as the person who doesn't,
Mm,
then you might have a little bit more of an
sure.
advantage. But even if you are talented and you practice here and there versus somebody who doesn't have the talent and practices every single day,
Mm.
that person that doesn't have the talent will exceed the other person.
So you just answered what my next question was going to be, because beyond the technical skills, what artistic qualities do you believe is essential for a makeup artist? It just seems like the more you do, the better you get,
Yeah,
right? Um, how do you stay up to date on some of the techniques as things kind of evolve and change?
it's a lot of social media,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
So a lot of the times, like, I'm on my business page, I'm scrolling through trying to see different techniques, different like services that are new. Like you mentioned before, the blushing. I'm personally not a fan because I haven't really seen healed results.
mhm,
And I feel like with blushing, you have to have perfect skin for
yeah.
that. Because if you have like hyperpigmentation and then all of a sudden you have this blush, it just, for me, it doesn't feel like it looks as pretty.
I agree. I agree. I felt like the permanent blushing seemed like,
Yeah.
mm,
Well,
it,
I mean, there's like so much now between the blushing, there's permanent
mm,
contouring.
oh my God.
Yeah, like they're going the whole 9 yards. But the other parts of, permanent makeup, besides, you know about the lip blush, you know about the eyeliner, that's been around for a long time. But also you have scar cover up
Like
for
the,
stretch marks and
like
stuff.
this thing
Yep.
that could get covered up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So and then you also have areola tattooing, which is also another realm in that as well.
Wow. You
Mm-hmm.
might have a client here. I've lived with this thing on my face
Well, hold
forever.
on a second. I haven't taken that course yet, so slow your roll, okay?
I listen. I haven't prepared myself mentally. So as much time as it takes you, we can work on this together.
Okay.
I think you've answered a lot of the questions that I had kind of in the conversation. Have you encountered any challenges in this journey? Like, I'm sure early on, maybe a little bit, but what are some things that stick out to you that you've encountered?
I feel like the biggest thing I encountered was how much of a roller coaster I wasn't expecting to be on. Because with this field, it's not like you put something on somebody like makeup
Sure.
or eyelashes where you could just take it off if
Sure.
it doesn't work.
Right.
This is permanent
Yeah. Yeah.
or semi permanent,
Right.
technically.
Right.
So it's not like something they could just be rid of the next day. So you have to make sure you're on your A game at all times. And the whole time you're learning about how to do the pressure, what colors to use on people, things like that. So I think that like you could have a good day with an amazing client that was really nice. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, that was the worst I've ever done. So it's just like highs and lows, highs and lows. And you're learning all sorts of things along the way because everybody has different skin types. You know, medications that they may be on can affect the healing. They may have bled a lot, so then the healing will be different as well. So it was a roller coaster that I wasn't expecting, but I thoroughly don't regret anything because it made me
Yeah.
appreciate
Your
things a
work
little
is
more.
great.
Thank you.
You know, just kind of, you know, looking at it again, the last, you know, we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
But seeing what you've done over the last 5 years and kind of just following your pages, it's great work.
Thank you.
And I think that more people who need that, I would definitely refer this way.
Thank
You know,
you.
and again, you know, actually, what I was going to ask you, have you done any men?
I have.
You have.
I have.
Yeah. Your husband?
Yeah, right. He would never. Well, he did let me practice drawing shapes on him
Oh,
when
he
I
did?
first started.
Okay, good,
So he was
good.
supportive in that aspect,
Yeah,
but he's like,
yeah.
no, my eyebrows are fine. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I have done a couple of men. I haven't really posted them because I hadn't really done much, because male brows are different.
Sure.
Like as far as shape and like the hair flow.
How they grow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I practiced a little bit, but I don't get that many. So
Yeah.
I don't like really dive into it the way I dive into
Yeah.
like doing women's brows.
Sure.
So the few men that I have done, they're, for most people that would look at them, they're like, oh my God, that looks great.
Yeah.
For me, I'm too particular
Yeah.
and meticulous about how I do things
Right.
and how it looks that I haven't had the courage
How
to
do you
post.
practice? Like, do you have friends that sign up, or like do you like do you have like a 3D model that you practice on? Like, what's that look like?
Practice is on fake skin, so which you can purchase anywhere like Amazon, Etsy, any of those sites, and you just take a blade or you take a needle and you just practice what you need to practice for the day.
How accurate is it? Like like human skin? Is it pretty? No.
It depends on the skin. I think the one thing that I did practice on that was close to human skin was pork skin.
Wow.
And mind you, you need to wash the pork skin because my fingers smelled really bad for
yuck.
days because I didn't wash it properly.
Oh no.
But I mean, I've practiced on that. I practiced on fruit.
Okay.
So just to get different skin textures, because when you look at a client's skin, you can, once you have the experience, you'll be able to tell like what kind of skin they have. So for example, older clients tend to have thinner skin. So you can't do as normal pressure. You have to do a little bit lighter. Somebody who uses like retinol, things like that will have thinner skin too. Somebody who has thick, coarse hair with big pores will have thicker skin. So I mean, it's all different ways that you can practice and learn.
From what I read, this industry is growing, and it seems like it's growing pretty rapidly.
Yes.
I have a couple questions before we wrap up. First question is, someone who's aspiring to be a PMU artist, what advice do you have for them?
Always remember why you started the journey. Because there have been plenty of people, including myself, that have started the journey and then suddenly questioned why you started it, because you feel defeated at points.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing that people don't understand is, even though they practice every day, they feel like they should be further along in their journey than where they currently are. And while everybody learns at a different pace, it doesn't mean that's you. You know, like it doesn't mean that because this person learned this day, let's say like Wednesday, and they're so far along a week later, but you learned like 2 Wednesdays ago and you're still somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You shouldn't compare yourself to that person. What people should do is just basically enjoy the journey so that you can really appreciate everything at the end.
I think that's a function of instant gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I've been saying this a lot on my podcast since I started, which I forgot to mention, this is my 5th episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've lived with things at our fingertips for a very long time where we can get answers to things quickly and we want results quickly. And I too felt that in my career where I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm not getting the results. So I appreciate the determination and grit and the advice that you just gave to someone who wants to start this journey, whether it be this or whatever it is. You know, I appreciate that. What's the most rewarding aspect in your work that you do? Like, what do you feel good with at the end of the day when you serve your clients?
Honestly, just helping them in general,
Mm,
and it's not it just, um, like I mentioned before, like, when they feel like the world is complete just for something as simple as eyebrows because they've had such low self-esteem for so long. That is so rewarding when they can look at themselves and like start to cry because
yeah,
they're so happy.
yeah,
And then another aspect which I've kind of stepped away from, I was teaching for a little bit, but I have stepped back just to kind of focus more on
sure,
being here by myself for the first time,
yeah,
but I loved helping students
mhm.
start their career and kind of guide them like, hey, I was there. I know exactly how you felt. And it wasn't that long ago, even though some people were like, oh, yeah, 5 years ago. That
So do we
was.
see a little brow wow school coming at some point down the road?
um, Possibly
Okay.
not anytime soon. Like I said, I want to get everything settled here. I
Yeah,
want to
got plenty of time.
build my clientele
Yeah,
as much as I
yeah,
can. But even now, like past students still reach out to me
yeah,
and they're looking for advice, and I'm always more than happy to
sure.
give them advice. Even people that I had somebody reach out to me the other day about taking a course. I was like, oh yeah, you
Mhm.
should definitely go to Micropigmentation
Yeah,
Academy because they have a wealth of knowledge
sure.
and they're really great at what they do. And this is my experience with it, and this is what you're probably going to experience as well.
Two questions for me, and we'll wrap up here. I, AI is pretty much all over the place. I'm not gonna lie, I use it all the time.
Hmm.
I use it for my campaigns. I use it for sometimes social media posts. I use it to do research.
Yeah,
Um, and there's all that's just on a chat GPT level and
yeah,
whatnot. There's other things that you can make videos, you can make logos, you can do pretty much anything. It's kind of freaky. Um, but it's just the way things have gone historically with technology and how things are going now.
yeah.
It's moving really fast.
Mhm.
What do you see? Do you see that impacting your profession at all? And if so, how?
I do. And I only say that because even now, with before AI just kind of blew up like this, like people filtering photos too much to where, it's not the actual work. So, I mean, I've seen it before, people stealing photos and stuff like that
Mm,
and using it as their own. And
sure.
like, I get if it's some sort of strategy to get people to come to you and talk to you more, but at the same time, like, I'm more I would prefer it to be more raw. So I don't personally use ChatGPT. I probably will sometime down the line, but I like to talk to people as if
Of course.
you and me are just
Of
talking
course.
right
Yeah,
now.
of
Like
course.
it's more I don't want to I'm professional, but I also want to be
Right.
not like a robot in a
Right.
sense.
Are there AI tools like for the actual tools that you use that or like a software that it makes it the consultation much easier, for the client that you know of or have heard of?
Oh, no, not really. Like I said, I just use
Yeah.
something virtual, like whether I FaceTime you or do it through Instagram
Yeah.
or Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it as
Yeah.
far as like tools that I would use for
Yeah.
consultations.
Um, how competitive is the market right now for PMU?
Very.
Very.
Hmm.
So that's all I have.
Okay.
I appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun. And again, my main goal of this podcast is to dive into other people's work
Hmm.
and then allow them this platform, which is why I call it your platform, to share it and, post it on social media, post it on the podcast. But before I go, where can people find you?
So I'm located at Refined Med Spa in Mystic. So that's at 80 Stonington Road in Mystic.
What about social media?
So it's at LIL_brow wow.
Brow wow, like bow wow, but brow
Brow wow.
wow. All
Yes.
right. Well, I appreciate the time. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming on, and maybe in a year or so we can do this again. See where things have changed.
Of course.
I
Thanks for
appreciate the
having
saying.
me.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Thank you.